Please welcome to the stage Liz Schreier, President and CEO of the U.S. Global Leadership Coalition, Barbara Humpton, Chief Executive Officer of Siemens USA, and Carmen Villar, Vice President of Social Business Innovation at Merck.
Ladies, thank you. Did you pick your walk-up music?
I did. Well, good morning, everyone. I'm Liz Schreier. I'm President and CEO of the U.S. Global Leadership Coalition, and I'm so delighted to be back on the Concordia stage because this is clearly the place to be in New York today and tomorrow, and I'm thrilled to be with an unbelievable panel and an incredible topic. Obviously, the Secretary of Commerce is not with us. Secretary Ross had a change in his schedule. I know he was interested in being part of this conversation about how the private sector is engaging in tackling these challenging issues on the global stage. And I know particularly he wanted to talk about the private sector working with Commerce, USAID, on Prosper Africa. But luckily, we have an amazing two powerhouse businesswomen to be part of this conversation. Let me welcome and introduce Barbara Humpton, who is the CEO of U.S. Siemens, and welcome, Barbara.
Thank you.
You can clap for that.
Thank you.
And Carmen Villar, who is the Vice President of Business Innovation at Merck, and welcome to both of you.
Thank you.
So let me set the stage for a moment about what we're going to talk about. So I lead this what's called the Strange Bedfellow Coalition of 500 businesses and NGOs. Both Carmen and Barbara are part of that. And we work with all the living former secretaries of state, military, faith leaders to advance and look at how we make sure that we are involved in development and diplomacy around the world. And one of the things that I have seen is this sea change of how the private sector has engaged on tackling these global challenges. If we had been here a decade ago, frankly, the private sector probably would have been involved philanthropically. Yes. Today, it is totally different as we are talking about in this conversation. You are here all in as part of your private sector, as part of your business strategy. And what we're going to do in the next 20 minutes is we're going to unpackage that. The why, the how, and the opportunities ahead of us, especially in light of the backdrop as the world leaders are gathered to talk about the SDGs, how we're going to build on them. So I want to start with unpackaging, and Barbara, I want to point to you first. You got your start in this world, as I understand it, as an IBM software developer working on classified GBS technology. Love to hear about that, but we don't have time sometime. But what it did, as I understand, is it gave you a sense of what real responsibility and leadership means in the world, and you have brought that in your core values as CEO of Siemens now. You have said that responsibility, businesses need to show leadership and responsibility in really bringing values to society, core leadership. Why?
A company that doesn't bring value to society shouldn't exist. I mean, we are absolutely a critical part of what society is made up of. We're part of the fabric of society. We have governments that help us to structure our public lives. We have faith-based organizations that help us with our spiritual lives. But what we do, what we make, is often through the work of companies like mine. I've always been mission-driven in my own personal career development, and frankly, joining Siemens has given me a fantastic opportunity to live out my own why. Solving big problems. The Siemens corporate strategy, as you say, is built around the global megatrends of climate change, urbanization, aging demographics around the world, the global supply chain, and overarching all of that, digitalization. And what we get to do is bring our know-how in electrification, automation, digitalization to solve those big, hard problems that others simply can't address.
So I'm going to drill down on some specifics, but Carmen, I want to get you in the conversation. You've been in and out of government. Now you have a big leadership role at Merck. Your CEO, Ken Frazier, has been at the forefront of this conversation. He has talked about how Merck has to be the compass, the North Star, and he has said that Merck has to not just care about the shareholders, but the stakeholders. So tell me why, when he says that the world at large has to be woven into everything that Merck does, not just philanthropically, but commercially, even caring about the poorest in the world.
Thanks, Liz, and thanks to this great panel of strong women. I'm so excited to be here at Concordia today. You know, Ken Frazier, our CEO, I think there's a history there of our company. It was really founded on this idea that we are going to invent great things for patients and the profits will follow. So to start, we had a really strong base in thinking about this why question. And then we had scientists like Maurice Hillman who invented over 40 different vaccines. And when we think about his vaccines for mumps, which is now the MMR vaccine, he actually took a DNA swab from his daughter and then grew that and then injected his second daughter when the vaccine was ready to go. And so our scientists expect that, right? And we know that patients expect that. They want access to innovative new therapies, medicines and vaccines, and we need to deliver. We need to bring value to them. And I will say we're starting to see more and more that shareholders and investors really expect that. If we saw what the Business Roundtable did in terms of changing their mission statement and really saying, listen, we need you to pull this through. Environmental, social, and governance issues are expected, and we want to see how the businesses are doing this. And then lastly, and I think really importantly for over a 100-year-old company like Merck, is really that our employees expect it. They want to get up every day and feel good about where they go to work, what they're doing, and how we represent them in the communities in which they work.
So I want to drill down about what's working. And Barbara, you know, Siemens is a world leader in deploying technology and innovative approaches, and particularly to sustainable development around the world, and particularly about addressing access to electricity and power. You've got a lot of programs around the world, but there's one I picked out that I love, and it's your Egypt mega project. So can you share with everybody that one to just show what's working?
Oh, I thank you, Liz. What a perfect opportunity to do this, and with this fantastic audience. Think about this. There are 1 billion people around the world who don't have access to electricity, and there are another 1.5 billion people whose electricity isn't reliable. And at Siemens, we do develop technology that generates electricity. We're in the power generation business with just about every form of power gen available. When we went to meet with the president of Egypt, we had a very simple discussion about actually increasing power production. And in a very small set of discussions, settled on a roadmap that involved bringing in gas-fired power for about 14 megawatts of new electrical power generation. It increased the power supply by 40% and I'll say they set a new land speed record, 27 months to get that all together. But a project like that is way more than just a business transaction and a construction project. What we recognized is that in order to make this sustainable and really contribute to Egypt's growth and prosperity, an element of this needed to be education and training. Around the world today, we're spending some $600 million on our own employee training. But one of the things I'm really proud that we're doing is establishing training programs. We've educated 5,000 young Egyptians, preparing them for careers in the power business.
That's fabulous. Well, you have an equally compelling story, but in a totally different sector. And one of the things that is impressive about Merck is you have donated more than 2.8 billion vaccines. You've been involved in maternal and child mortality, having impact in places like Uganda and Zambia. And I wonder if you can touch upon one of the things that's interesting about Merck, along with lots of companies, is you partner with government, particularly with USAID. And if you can talk about what's working and why not just do it alone? You know, why is it so important to partner with government?
Well, to steal a line, I think because we're better together.
Okay.
I think really to bring our innovative solutions to all that need them, we have to partner, whether it's across public and private sector or private sector, whatever it might be, to get that creative solution to the people who need it the most. And I will say through our Merck for Mothers program, which was a commitment we made in 2011 to help to end maternal mortality, we did partner with USAID in an initiative called Saving Mothers, Giving Life. and really looking at the reduction of maternal mortality rates in Nigeria, Zambia, and Uganda, where in 2 countries we were able to lower the maternal mortality rate by over 40%, and in the third by nearly 30%. And so seeing that impact and understanding that if you have a mother who is actually alive and able to rear her children, participate in her family and the economy, we know then that we are contributing to the greater good. And those patients and those mothers will be out there taking care of the health of their communities. And that is really important to us. I think through scientific collaboration, we also just entered a project with PEPFAR, the President's Emergency Plan for AIDS Relief this year that we announced. And it's really a scientific collaboration looking at how some of our vaccine dosing affects women who might be immunocompromised in the developing world.
Carmen, let me ask you something. One of the things that Concordia is really pushing on is this idea of to meet the SDG goals, to tackle these issues. We got to figure out how to do a scale. Government can't do that alone. NGOs can't do it. Private sector. It's really this energy of all. Mm-hmm. You have worked on something that we have to deal with scale. Yeah. You worked on Ebola when you were chief of staff at CDC. What infectious diseases, you can't get bigger and scale on that. To deal with infectious diseases, we're talking about $4.6 billion a year to try to avert the capacity of pandemics. How does business play a role at scale? And I want to come back to you, Barbara, on the same question.
Sure, thank you. We play a huge role, but also in partnership. I think this is important when we think about the investigational Ebola vaccine that's out there and being deployed in the DRC right now. It's been deployed to nearly 250,000 people. There's a commitment for more doses that are on their way now, and then more doses even in the next 18 months. And I just want to say that we did not do that by ourselves. The vaccine itself was developed by the Public Health Agency of Canada. It was sold to a small company in Iowa, where it kind of sat for a while. And in 2014, when I was crazy busy at the CDC working to fight the West African outbreak in the 3 countries, that company contacted Merck and said, I think you have experience in working with this cell line. Yeah. Are you interested in this product? And with that collaboration and that support of the US government and other great scientists and thinkers, the Ebola vaccine came to be. And I think that we couldn't have done that without it, but now that we have done it, we are committed to ensuring that we can get as much supply as we can possibly manage to the areas where we need them and hope to get this thing under control.
Fantastic. Let's hope so. That's great. That's great.
That's where.
So, Barbara, one of the things with this idea of scale that I love about Siemens and I love about your leadership is you're not afraid to go big. and I see that in so many areas that you focus on infrastructure, on energy, but also on climate, which is obviously this huge theme of UNGA this week. World Bank has talked about that by 2050, we're going to see potentially 143 million climate migrants. That can affect infectious diseases, conflict, fragility. So you've been talking about this push to get clean and reliable electricity to the billion people you're talking about. How does private sector go big at scale? What's your vision on what you do sitting in your seat?
Oh, well, for the Siemens Corporation, honestly, one of the most important things for us was walking the talk. In 2015, we made a corporate commitment to be carbon neutral by 2030, one of the first industrial companies to come out with a major goal. A sub-goal of that was to be 50% there by 2020. I'm going to tell you, I'm really pleased. All signals are that we are, in fact, going to achieve that as a corporation. Now, that's us doing our part, and us doing it at scale because we're in 190 countries, 380,000 people around the world making these commitments locally. But we're also reaching into the supply chain and working with our suppliers to get there. But maybe the most interesting piece of this is our own environmental portfolio that we're able to offer. Not only power generation, but also the transmission and distribution, so we've got fewer losses on lines. And then energy efficiency technology for buildings and transportation. It's that combination of offerings that makes it possible for us to help others to achieve their goals.
So let me, in our last few minutes of being together, I love being with Power Women, and I love the fact that you both have this optimistic spirit about you. You both have traveled all over the world, and maybe you could share with us somebody you met, some story somewhere around the world which leaves you to be optimistic that businesses can do good and do well, and that this private sector engagement in the world, actually we could come back here and say, it works. Carmen, where in the world have you seen great things happen from your own, somebody you met?
Yeah, I have seen so many great things, I have to say. But I'm going to go back to Ebola for a second, because when I was at CDC, it was a critical time in the fight of the West African outbreak. And we were in a place in our appropriations in the government where we didn't have necessarily a lot of cash on hand. We were coming to the end of the fiscal year, and we were really challenged. And this is when I sort of woke up to our collaboration with the private sector. This is when private sector companies, this is when people really stepped up to say, we want to help. And through our CDC Foundation, they did. They donated money, they donated supplies, and we were able to work with folks like UPS to get those supplies where they needed to go. Henry Schein stepped up for PPE. We just had a wonderful, great level of support from the sector. And that's really what inspired me in looking beyond the government walls and beyond the public sector. And now to look and see where I am now and working for a man like Ken Frazier as we started this discussion, who really has brought our company a long way, but so believes in the mission and is so committed to doing good and doing well. It's an honor to work for a leader like that, but also to know that my journey has brought me along to a company that really believes in that mission.
Fantastic. Barbara?
Yeah, and Carmen mentioned at the beginning, listening to employees. I want to tell you how encouraged I am by meeting young people in our organization all around the globe. We've really focused on ownership culture. And we've seen projects spring up, like a team that decided that there was a refugee camp lacking medical care, but we had all of the equipment we needed to put together a containerized solution and make that available so that the refugees would have access to health care. Or the folks in Germany who actually organized a water airlift. Every airplane that went from Germany to South Africa during the drought, to Cape Town, they would ask passengers to carry on liters of water, and we would check their bags for them. And so everyone was coming off of airplanes with water from Europe for Africa. It's those kinds of things where you give someone that opportunity to take matters into their own hands. It's amazing what they come up with.
Well, the message I think that we're hearing from this panel is that businesses, private sector is making a difference on these big global changes, both from the senior leadership level, but also from the employee level. So ladies and gentlemen, please join me in thanking Carmen, Merck, Barbara, and Siemens, and the leadership that they're bringing to these global challenges. Thank you.
And Liz,
thank you.
Thank you, Liz.
Oh, please.
Live from the funk, it's hotter than Texas. Right from the jump, yeah, you got my attention. You give me that stuff, and it's such a blessing. You and